Hey everyone, this is going to be a video about Reinhardt, specifically in Overwatch 2. I wanted to make a new video and wasn't really sure what to really talk about, and I've been playing a lot of Overwatch 2, and the games have been really fun, and I've been super enjoying it. I enjoyed Overwatch 1 a lot, and I played it like a decent amount every once in a while here and there. But Reinhardt was a character that I never really put time into, but was often, from what I could tell, seen as a very fundamentals or I guess a fair character. I never really saw a lot of people get necessarily frustrated from fighting a Reinhardt, and I always thought that was kind of interesting. So I was curious and wanted to try to get better at the character as a whole, so I put some time into him, and here's kind of my thoughts on his design and the things that I discovered while playing. So here we go. I felt like giving a quick rundown on Reinhardt's gameplay kit is a good idea and a good place to start off so that we can delve deep into his design and just my thoughts on it in general. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Reinhardt is a melee only character because he only has a hammer. He has no gun, so he has no, his main basic attack is a melee attack. The only other character in the game like this is Brigitte, so that makes him very unique in his own way. Reinhardt's first ability is Charge. He charges in front of him after a brief second of going into the animation. This charge boosts you forward for a decent duration and allows Reinhardt to slightly drift to the left and right. If Reinhardt runs into someone in front of him, that person will be pinned by Reinhardt and will be unable to act out until Reinhardt is finished charging. There are three ways this charge can end. Reinhardt either collides with an object, doing massive damage to the person pinned up against him. He cannot run into anything, and then the duration of the charge runs out, so nothing happens, or Reinhardt can cancel the charge entirely. Reinhardt's second ability is Fire Strike. Fire Strike is a projectile that fires straight in front of Reinhardt. It also has a small AoE explosion when it collides with a surface. Reinhardt can hold 2 charges of Fire Strike at a time, so if he uses one, then it will go on cooldown while another Fire Strike charges up. Fire Strike does around the same amount of damage as one hammer swing from Reinhardt. Reinhardt's third and main ability is his shield, where he holds a big shield in front of him, which blocks all projectiles and bullets, any damage from the enemy team from going through to the other side, but allows Reinhardt's team to shoot straight through it. His shield has 1,200 health currently in this patch, and Reinhardt cannot attack, charge, or fire strike without bringing down the shield. This shield is basically what Reinhardt's is about, and what makes him unique as a tank, or as a character for that matter. Reinhardt's final ability is, I don't know what it's called. What do they call it? I have no idea what the frick they call it. Let me look before I keep going. Where's your abilities? Can I not check your abilities? Earth Shatter. How did I forget that? Earth Shatter is a giant AoE shockwave in front of Reinhardt, which stuns all enemies hit by the shockwave and deals a decent amount of damage. They're temporarily stunned, or I guess knocked down in a way, which allows Reinhardt's team to make advances and allows Reinhardt himself to make big plays. Reinhardt's main job in a normal match of Overwatch is to tank, but obviously that's obvious because he's the only tank now in Overwatch 2, there's only one. What I mean by that is Reinhardt's main goal is to create space for his team, and there's a lot of different ways he can do that, but his toolkit really lends itself to encouraging Reinhardt to create that space. Reinhardt's melee attack having pretty good range makes it a great tool to keep people away from Reinhardt. So if anyone's too close, you can kind of swing in their general direction, and because the hammer swing does so much damage, it kind of zones people off of Reinhardt, which in turn, if Reinhardt is playing with his team, will zone people off of his team. Reinhardt, to me, in all honesty, is kind of similar to Genji, where I think their base toolkit is very similar. Well, not similar in the way they function, but more so similar in the way that they're designed to do a main purpose, where Genji is designed to dive the backline and kind of harass and take attention away from the team, from the opposing team, like cause a distraction until he gains his ultimate and then pop off with Dragon Blade. In my head, and from the experience that I've gained while playing Reinhardt, I believe he is designed in a similar way, where his toolkit is somewhat lackluster. In a lot of ways, it feels like you should be playing Reinhardt trying to build your ultimate. So you kind of play back, allow your team to pop off, get their damage in, try to get picks, create space for your team so that they can continue shooting by like using your shield, charging, trying to get a pick, keeping people off of your squishies, making sure they don't get near you or your team. And then once you get that damage built up, then you can go for a shatter play and help your team wipe out the opposing opponents and stuff. I wouldn't necessarily call Reinhardt an ult bot. I don't think Genji really is anymore either, because he can kind of hold his own, and picks are a lot more important now that Overwatch 2 is a 5v5, but yeah, in my head, they are kind of designed in a similar way, where they're somewhat front-loaded into their ultimate. So I just think that's an interesting comparison, and an interesting way to design a character. Some things that I learned during my time playing Reinhardt, and that I was told and saw other Reinhardts doing, was, for instance, one of the things you can do is, because his melee, his hammer has a really long animation, if you swing your mouse with the hammer swing and kind of move your camera around, you can hit a lot more people if you're kind of like, I don't know, I'm showing it on screen right now. I showed it a little earlier, but yeah, it allows you to hit multiple people, or a lot more people with your melee than you would normally. Another thing I learned was that as playing as Reinhardt, you're very tanky, but you also absorb a lot of heals, and your shield is complemented a lot more when you incorporate cover, and hiding behind cover with your playstyle. So sometimes putting the shield down, allowing it to heal, is a good way to do that. I personally like to, from what I noticed while playing, if you allow the opponent to break the shield, like let's say instead of putting away your shield at like 300 health, I prefer to let the opponent break the shield, because it's down for about 5 seconds and then it comes back with about 700 health. Instead of it being at 300 health, you put it away, then you have to wait, I don't know how long it is, like 4 or 5 seconds for the shield to recharge, and then there's that recharge time, yada yada yada. It takes forever. So in my opinion, and from what I learned, I prefer to let the opponent just break the shield and just wait for the small recharge rate to come back, instead of putting it away before they can shatter it. Another thing I learned was that Earth Shatter has a way longer range than you think it does. I showed a clip earlier where I completely miss because they're way too far away, so don't look at that, but it has very deceptive range. It goes pretty far, and it does a ton of damage. I'm pretty sure it can one shot a 200 health squishy if they're right in front of you, so that's also something interesting to note. On top of that, I haven't been really showing it in this gameplay that I've had going on in the background, but to me, Fire Strike seems most effective when you use it as a poking tool to help farm your ultimate, so get free damage and poke them, because you have 2, it's fine, and to finish off opponents. So I've done that a few times because it's like a distance hammer swing, you know, it's a ranged hammer swing, that's a better way to put it, because it does the similar amount of damage. So oftentimes, like 200 damage squishy, swing, if they start running away, you can try to finish them off with a Fire Strike. You can even combo Fire Strike after one of your hammer swings too. That's pretty satisfying and fun to do. But yeah, I try to use Fire Strikes to poke, or finish off opponents that are at low health. Another thing you can do is, when you're holding up shield with right click, if you hold left click, your main attack button or whatever you're playing on, you can move the camera around and Reinhardt will stay in place. I started doing it later as I play the character and try to incorporate that specific mechanic, which is new to Overwatch 2, more into my gameplay. And it actually is very helpful. It allows you to, for instance, if you have Shatter and you want to shatter the enemy team, you see a good opening or you're waiting for an opening, it allows you to turn around and kind of see how many people are behind you, what teammates are close to you, you know, like who's ready to follow up on the shatter before you actually shatter. And then because you're able to move the camera and turn around you without having to move the shield, that makes it a lot better, because you don't have to move the shield away from where you're facing, you know. So that's super good quality of life change, and I think like, but it's super helpful and will make you just play a lot better because it just helps with you gathering information a lot better as well. So point of this whole video was, well, I guess a few things. Number one, I think after playing Reinhardt a decent amount, I think I've improved at him an okay amount. I still main Zarya for tank, but you know, everyone mains Zarya for tank right now. She's broken. But he, to me, is fun. I feel like just because I was constantly only playing him, I got a little tired, and just worn out of only playing him. And so that got a little boring. I wouldn't call Reinhardt necessarily boring, but I think he's not really for everyone. I like that he has a very simplistic kit, that in all honesty kind of highlights his team a lot more than it highlights him. He's a lot more unique now that there's not a lot of other shields in the game, so that makes him even more unique and special in his own role. Do I think Reinhardt is Fundies though? Like, is he broken? No, I don't think so, especially not right now when there's a bunch of other better tanks. But that's just because we're early meta right now, and they're deciding to take forever to release patches. But he's definitely not broken. But is Reinhardt Fundies? I think so. I still don't necessarily get frustrated with fighting a Reinhardt. I notice that when I'm fighting a Reinhardt, I'm more so frustrated by, I guess, the coordination he has with his team, or what his team is doing around the Reinhardt, if that makes any sense. So Reinhardt requires a lot of positioning to be effective, because if you're kind of going out in the middle of nowhere, not really managing your shield health, and kind of just swinging like crazy, swinging for the hills, you're not going to be very effective. But if a Reinhardt positions very well, and uses his shield and manages it really well, and then farms his ult up, gets some big plays, gets good usage and mileage out of his Earth Shatter, then it's like, he can be kind of annoying. But, you know, that's because he's gotten very good at Reinhardt. You know, like, he's put, the player has put in the time. So, overall, I think Reinhardt is Fundies, you know, like there's the answer, I guess. Like, I don't know, I guess he's, me personally, I don't necessarily get frustrated, but I said that already. But yeah, like Reinhardt with an Ana Nano is pretty hard to deal with, because he's kind of unstoppable and does 1,000,000 damage. Reinhardt with Karika ult, kind of unstoppable, does 1,000,000 damage. But that's more so him comboed with his team, and then Reinhardt knowing when to follow up. So, it's an interesting dynamic, and in my head, Reinhardt's a well-designed character. Of course, the damage numbers fluctuate, but yeah, there you go. It was fun.
Man, he's too good.
Yep. Ooh, now you're on the leaderboard. Look at you.
Okay, just so you feel better. Yeah, you're really good.
What are you what are you talking about? I was literally complimenting you.
You were not complimenting.
I was! I said, look, you're on the leaderboard!
Oh, you're like, oh, look, he's on the leaderboard now. Yeah, you're definitely complimenting me.
I was!
Oh, look, he's on the leaderboard now. Look, oh, look at him. Look.
I was. That did not sound sarcastic in any way.
It did.